to be. But then this morning, we see where it is, Anthony. The president tweeting about this news that Mueller is looking at possible obstruction. And he could have said a lot of things, but what he chose to say is phony collusion with the Russians, zero proof. Now they go for obstruction of justice on the phony story. And the question is an obvious one. Why disrespect the special counsel and the probe? You can say there's nothing to it. You can say, you know, everything you did is fine. You can say you don't like it. But when you denigrate the process, Anthony, how is that helpful?
Oh, listen, I don't see that as denigrating the process. I see that as the president defending his position. Now, again, people may like this about the president or not, but I like it about him. There's a lot of fight in him, and so he thinks that this whole thing is unfair. He thinks the way it's been characterized has been unfair. And I think he's also finding himself in the presidency where he wants to execute an agenda on behalf of all the American people. And you get this sort of nonsense in Washington. And so this is part and parcel of what we were just talking about. So now we're back to Scandals Incorporated. We're back to these, frankly, fake scandals. Chris, there is nothing to that story. The President of the United States did not obstruct justice. Moreover, the campaign did not collude with the Russians as it related to anything that happened in that campaign. And I was there, and I'm very comfortable saying that on national television. So we can debate this. We can have this obstruct the president's agenda. But I think what we both know about the president, there's a lot of fight in him, and he's not going to take this stuff sitting down. So I sort of applaud him for it. I don't see any reason why he should be taking this the way prior politicians have taken this sort of nonsense. Well, and I said yesterday, let me just finish, I said yesterday or 2 days ago, if Secretary Clinton were the president right now, there would be another manufactured scandal related to her that would be slowing down her agenda. So maybe something we can learn about from yesterday is why don't we cut the nonsense and why don't we subordinate ourselves to the interests of the American people and give this president an opportunity to execute his agenda, which is a pro-growth, healing agenda for the nation.
Well, look, a few things to unpack there. First, they can do whatever they want, right? He can be getting his agenda going at the same time the investigation goes on. Nobody's stopping him from that. Yes, there's media distraction, but a little bit of this about tactic and strategy on the White House's part as well. And also, Anthony, I think it's really dangerous to conflate the central question of how did the Russians so effectively interfere in our election? How did they do it? Why did they do it? And how do we stop it and make our elections more safe the next time? The White House seems to be conflating that with any questions about collusion. Right?
Chris,
you don't want to do that.
Let me ask you a question. Okay, so how did they do that? You're saying that because of the leaks of the Hillary Clinton and campaign manager Podesta's emails, that's how they influenced the election?
Wait a minute, you're asking about whether or not the Russians were interfering in the election?
Well,
that's
no,
you believe that's an open question? That's not an open question, Anthony.
Chris, I'm asking you how they did it, okay? I'm asking you how they did it. Okay?
Well, in part, we don't even understand. What we know from the IC right now...
I'm trying to make a point to you. It had absolutely nothing to do with the president, and the president has been very consistent on this, to the extent that after all the findings have been established, and to the extent that that is absolutely accurate what you're saying.
But it's a separate question also, Anthony.
But listen,
whether who had anything, who helped them,
Chris,
if they were involved with the campaign. I know, I agree with you. That's a good point you just made. We don't know the facts. That's why they're investigating. But who was involved with it is a side issue to the main issue. And when you say there's nothing to any of it, it is all a hoax. It may have been China. It may have been a fat guy. That does a disservice to making our election process.
I did see. Okay, so now we're back. You and I are back disagreeing because the president had nothing to do with it. Okay, and his staff had nothing to do with it. So all I'm saying to you is he has been very tough. He's a very tough adversary, and to the extent that the Russians did something, and it's definitive, and that investigation is conclusive, the president will take the appropriate and measured response against the Russian government, the Russian hackers, or whoever it may be, Chris.
So that investigation matters. You're not questioning that investigation.
I'm not questioning that investigation, but the notion that the president of the United States obstructed justice is absolute complete nonsense, and it's back into that Washington fever where people want to throw eggs and tomatoes at him to try to slow down his agenda.
But how could Mueller
you're
not
saying that
look
the media,
at it, Anthony? How could Mueller not look at it when you had James Comey testify that he believes he was fired for not backing off the probe on Michael Flynn? Sessions obviously ducked the questions, but how could Mueller not look at it as possible obstruction? Doesn't mean he's going to find any proof. Doesn't mean he's going to suggest impeachment proceedings. But how could he not look at it on the facts as we understand them?
Let him look at it, but the leaks are absolute nonsense. And the president said to Lester Holt a few weeks back that, hey, listen, I knew that if I fired Comey, it would probably extend the Russian investigation as opposed to shorten it. And so he thought that was the right thing to do. I have to respect his decision. Mr. Comey also said in front of the Congress that he didn't think that the president should have been under investigation, that there was no quote-unquote investigation of him. So we have to be fair to the president, and we also have to look at this thing for what it is, which is another scandal, another witch hunt.
We don't know what it is. We haven't had any findings from the investigators.
We do. Chris, we know what it is because you and I are old enough now to see this movie. We've watched this movie play out in the 90s. We watched it play out during the Bush administration. We watched it play out during the Obama administration. And I think the reason why President Trump is in the White House right now is the American people are tired of it. They want to go back to figuring out a way to fix our infrastructure, regrow our economy, heal the nation's divide, help lower middle-class families with rising incomes, create more aggregate
And there's opportunity to do all that. He's president for 4 years. He's got a staff that he can thicken out with people, and he can get his agenda going. I'm just saying that part of it is how you talk about the things that matter.
No question we're going to do that, but we're also going to push and shove back people that are involved
with nonsense. And how you push and shove back also matters. Look how we did it today, Anthony. That's all I'm saying. I'm testing you on points. You may not agree with the testing, but how we do it is civil.
I like being here in Washington because I look taller than you on the screen here.
Well, you're always better looking, and you're always welcome.
Slightly taller than you on the screen here. I'm going to be doing these hits from Washington from now on.
I'm going to talk to my cameraman about that. This will never happen again. Anthony Scaramucci, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Good seeing you.